All right, how we doing, folks? It is Monday, February 20th, 2017. Rich Van Tassel back with you. Just put up the video regarding the Kings trading DeMarcus Cousins to the New Orleans Pelicans. Going to continue on this, of course, looking at the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, failure not to get DeMarcus Cousins in this situation, considering everything the Celtics have to offer. Certainly what DeMarcus Cousins would mean to a team like the Celtics. Clearly one of the Celtics' glaring needs are the rebounding, which Cousins would handle, having a guy in the middle that Al Horford, or offensively in the middle that, frankly, Al Horford has not delivered at this point. Al Horford's really struggling. Could it be that Horford plays in the center and that he's more of a power forward? Certainly, I would consider that, but again, that only adds to the reason why you would trade for DeMarcus Cousins. Now, I've been high on DeMarcus Cousins for many years now. I've said that the Celtics should make the deal happen. Of course, all I've been met with was DeMarcus Cousins will not be traded. The Kings have no interest in trading DeMarcus Cousins. Of course, none of you are going to fall down apologizing over yourselves, since I've been right the whole time again. Obviously, since DeMarcus Cousins has been traded today, but that's besides the point at this situation. I've said it many times. This is what DeMarcus Cousins is. He's a guy who puts up 27 and 12. He's been an All NBA center last year. He's certainly, I would expect him to be an All NBA player again this year. Should have been first team last year. Whether he will be this year or not, that depends on the quote unquote attitude. Again, I addressed the attitude in the last video. Maybe it is more of a situation than I know. But all I've known is DeMarcus Cousins has been in Sacramento the whole time. He's not gone from team to team here where every team's saying the same thing. The Sacramento Kings have not been in the playoffs since 2006. They've really struggled. They have not been able to keep players. Now they have not Willie Cauley Stein on the team. Let's see how long he's going to be able to stay around. But you look at guys like, Ben McLemore, who've been sent out. They brought in Rajon Rondo, didn't work out. Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay is not a great player. I'm not saying he is, but certainly you have a team with a Rudy Gay and a DeMarcus Cousins. You should be able to do more than that. Of course, we said they've lost Isaiah Thomas. They've now brought back Tyreke Evans. Tyreke Evans has been inconsistent, but he's put up numbers in his career. So if the Celtics are scared off by attitude, well, then you let them go after the season. But not after the season, after next season. You don't have to keep him. You had a chance to get him in. Of course, I said the Celtics should have given, going into this draft, which was the 2017 draft, or the 2016 draft, that is, they should have traded Jaylen Brown. They should have traded what became Jaylen Brown. I never would have drafted Brown in the first place. What became the third pick, and then the two other first round picks, and I would have been done with it. Now, especially with the rise and the elevation of play of Marcus Smart, you've gotten Avery Bradley on the team, who is a very valuable trade piece. There's no one on the Pelicans who they sent to Sacramento who even comes close to the level of play of Avery Bradley, a guy who's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, All NBA first team defensive player who can put up, 15 at least on a nightly basis. He's going to score more on a team like Sacramento, and you're not losing much because Marcus Smart has really been coming into his own. It's certainly something that the Celtics could have considered going into last year's draft. I said when Marcus Smart was playing well in the playoffs that I expected to be the year. Marcus Smart is a guy you drafted 6. He's one of the quote-unquote assets you've acquired, and you don't want to part ways with Avery Bradley to get him, and especially now, and you have Rozier as well. And, people can say what they want. I know every Celtics fan is going to say, no, this was a great move. Of course, had they gotten DeMarcus Cousins, they'd be, yelling to high heaven how it was a great move either way. But, I know all of you in the fan groups are so brainwashed that no matter what happens, as I've said, the Celtics could acquire me tomorrow, and you'd probably be talking about how good of a move it is. But, there's no reason the Celtics couldn't have offered more. And, I would consider, let's say that, this year's Brooklyn pick is the only one that they had, or last year's Brooklyn pick was the only one that they had. Certainly this year's is a little bit more attractive, though last year the Nets were terrible as well. So we'll just say both of them are even. Last year's 2016, this year's 2017 were equal. If those were, really your prized asset, you only had one of them, you didn't have a myriad of other mid-round picks as you've had, and you've had more of, I would be like, okay, I would still give it up for DeMarcus Cousins, but at least I'd look at it and be like, if you don't want to give it up for a guy who does have, at least some sort of attitude problems, you don't know how long he's going to stay around, I'd be like, okay, maybe not. But you have last year's Brooklyn pick and you have this year's Brooklyn pick. This is why you have these assets. You have a lot of opportunities to say, what, we can gamble on a DeMarcus Cousins because we still have this pick. And I'm looking at, let me just grab this. I'm looking at, the mock draft for this coming year. Of course, they have Boston as the top pick, but there's still even no guarantee of that. Remember, even with the lottery, the Nets are clearly going to be the worst team. It doesn't matter if the Nets lose every game the rest of the way. And I still see Celtics fans. Oh, the Nets lost. The Nets lost. The Nets have locked up the top seed for getting the number one pick a long time ago. But there's still no guarantee. At best, there's a 25% chance. Marcus Fultz is projected to go to Boston, a 6'4" point guard. Gee, do we have enough guards on the team? You already have Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley. You don't know what to do with those guys. Lonzo Ball, 6'6" point guard, not even a shooting guard or a small forward. Maybe you could move him. Josh Jackson, small guard, small forward. You already have Jay Crowder. You want to get rid of Jay Crowder, okay, but you're already talking about bringing in a Gordon Hayward. Jonathan Isaac at 4 is really the only power forward. But again, you need a much better center. The best center is the guy at New Orleans who's projected at 9 in this draft, is Robert Williams out of Texas A&M. This is such a guard-heavy draft. You have plenty of guards. We've seen for this entire season that the Celtics' biggest problem is the rebounding. I think moving Al Horford from the center to power forward would really help this team. You need to get a better center. And I'm sorry, when there's a guy like a DeMarcus Cousins available, you take your chance. They're going to give up probably more than they would have had to give up to get Cousins to get Jimmy Butler. I'm not saying they're going to make the Jimmy Butler trade happen at this point. I wouldn't expect it, because it doesn't appear Danny Ainge wants to make a deal. But you're going to give up probably as much to get a Jimmy Butler, who's another defensive-minded guard. Yeah, sure, he's a better offensive player than Marcus Smart. He's a better offensive player than Avery Bradley, though not by much, for Avery Bradley. But he's not going to rebound the basketball. Avery Bradley's a better rebounder than Jimmy Butler is. You really need that center. So you're willing to give up, more for Jimmy Butler than you are for DeMarcus Cousins. If you give up just as much for Paul George, I would say, okay, Paul George, I think, is on a different level than a Jimmy Butler. He's probably on a different level than DeMarcus Cousins. He's just a different position. But whatever. I mean, I just don't understand where the Celtics are going with this. I don't understand why Celtics fans are so complacent. They're telling me how they wouldn't have acquired Serge Ibaka. And again, the argument to me isn't whether or not you would have given up whatever it is for Serge Ibaka. I'll hear the argument you don't want to give those guys up, but don't tell me that Serge Ibaka would not have improved this Celtics team had you acquired him. Serge Ibaka is 10 times better than Amir Johnson, okay? But I'm not even going to relive that. But there's the other thing. You'll sign Amir Johnson to $12 million a year? I mean, folks, we've got to get to the point where we realize Amir Johnson is a dog shit player, okay? Let's just establish that right now. I mean, there are guys you could get for a third of what you paid Amir Johnson at $12 million a year. You could pay guys $4 million a year. Amir Johnson isn't better than Brandon Bass, who he replaced. But I'm not even going to go down that road anymore. But you're willing to give these ridiculous contracts to a guy like Amir Johnson, but you're not willing to take the chance to go get a DeMarcus Cousins because you're desperate to hold on to these assets. And even so, this is what I might see. Well, people may be wondering, why couldn't the Celtics get him? They clearly have more to offer. Well, did you ever think maybe the more the Celtics have to offer, the more the teams are going to hold Danny Ainge hostage in response? So I think that's only affecting their trade potential in that regard. They look at it and say, well, you have, and they have another Nets pick on top of this. I don't remember what year it is. maybe 2019, 2020. But you have this very, this very expensive Nets pick. You have more first round picks. You have an Avery Bradley, who's a very good player with the potential for Marcus Smart to take that spot. You have all these things, and teams will say, well, we want more than we'll get from another team because you have more to offer. Certainly something to keep an eye on. But again, the Celtics really dropping the ball on this one, in my opinion. We'll see what you all have to say, but we'll move from there. Thank you all so much.